Hello, Underneath the Hat podcast. This is your host, Cherie, and welcome to Underneath the Hat, season 4. Speak over yourself. So, if you haven't noticed, I am on location as we're closing out season 4 and the Underneath the Hat podcast all together. I am in beautiful South Beach, Miami, here standing Atlantic Ocean. And so I decided to bring the show here because I forgot to record it before I left. So let's get all the logistics out the way. Make sure you subscribe and like on YouTube and Underneath the Head Podcast. Check us out on all podcast platforms: Anchor, Overcast, Spotify, Apple, Google, Breaker, and Pocket Cast. Also, be sure to share, be engaged, post questions and comments. If you want to sew into the podcast, you can through Cash App at dollar sign YLAAT 2017, or you can Zelle through our email at underneath the hat at gmail.com. All right, so how did I get here? So, and it goes perfectly with our message for today. So the message for today of speaking over yourself is me. It's a song by Tamia, and it basically is her telling her significant other that loving herself and loving him doesn't work. And so if she has to choose between the two, she's going to choose me, which is herself. So this comes at a perfect time because I'm here in Miami visiting my godfather who's celebrating his 60th birthday tonight. And I've been here since Thursday. Um, it was already a scheduled trip, but God, in the midst of preparing for this trip, decided to take my maternal grandmother home, Jacqueline Luggett. And so we lost her on Sunday. And I was scheduled to leave on Thursday. And I'm glad that everything happened the way that it was because those that know me know that whenever trials and tribulations happen in my life, I like to retreat and remove myself and clear my head. And so this trip was much needed for me to be able to do what needed to be done in order to get my mind together. Because once I come back Monday, I'll be funeralizing my grandmother on Friday. So this was a much needed trip. And actually, I was going to go with a different song because, as I stated at the beginning of season 4, this will be the last season of Underneath the Hat podcast. It's time for me to clear my plate and do some new things. And so I will be ending the podcast on March 17th. And every week I choose a song to express who I am to my audience. And so it was supposed to be another song, but God told me today at lunch on South Beach, he said, no, I want you to do that. And so this was much needed for me to be able to focus on me. And sometimes when you get in professional relationships or personal relationships or familial relationships, or you just get comfortable in your skin and in the situation that you're in, you tend to forget about you. And I admit I have been there. I'm getting better at it now, but I have been there where I did not focus so much on me. And I'm realizing now as a 40, almost 41-year-old woman, that self-care is necessary. And it's not selfish because, as I always say, and I've heard people say, you can't fill someone else from an empty cup. And if my cup is always empty, then I can't give you what you need. So I am making time for me, and I am learning in my professional and my personal relationships to put me first and not always focus so much on other people. Not always focus so much on other people, and to make sure that I get some time for me, even if that means telling other people no. It's okay for you to say no. No is a whole complete sentence. You don't have to worry about capitalization or punctuation. And when you say it, mean it. And it has become one of my favorite words lately is to say no and mean it. And so in my personal relationships and my familial relationships, especially now having had planned the funeral arrangements for my grandmother and people expecting something out of me because they think they know my financial, what's the word I'm looking for? Because they think they know what my bank account says, the way my bank account is set up, as Kevin Hart would say. I had to say no in the planning of my grandmother's funeral, and I'm glad that I did because things were revealed and confirmed about people and their obligations. And so I decided I'm not going to keep trying to do for other people and they won't do the same thing for me. And I didn't feel bad about saying no either. Um, what I wanted to do, I did. What I didn't want to do, I didn't do. And I didn't feel as if I had to. So I'm proud of myself in that. And then with my professional, I took all of my bereavement days. The old Cherie wouldn't have done that. I would have found a way to go to work up until I couldn't work anymore and push my feelings aside and not listen to my body and my mind and what it was telling me, which was to sit my butt down and breathe in whatever way I needed to and not feel bad about being gone for 10 days. And so, and it's just confirming that, yes, I'm an asset to wherever I am, but I'm not irreplaceable. So things can still get done whether I'm there or not. And I need to take time out to take care of me. And with personal relationships, I realized who is in my corner, who isn't, who loves me for me, who doesn't, who how they really feel about me. I will say this: one thing I have learned recently is there's some truth in a joke, especially when you are the subject of the joke. There is truth in every joke. The things that we say, whether we call it shade or not, the way you deliver it and the things that you allow to come out your mouth, but then you say, I'm just playing. You mean what you say. And depending on how they respond, depends on if you say you playing or not. And so listening to the way people joke and the things that they say in regards to me, I'm realizing a lot about how people really feel about me. And I'm taking notes, writing it in my handy dandy notebook for those who know the show Blues Clues. And allow God to move me the way He wants to. But I'm just excited because I'm here doing my podcast live from the Atlantic Ocean. Like, who gets to say that? When the sun has come out, it's gotten a little bit warmer. I'm here in beautiful Florida, South Beach, Florida, thinking and processing and planning and listening and celebrating. So even though I lost my grandmother Sunday, I get to celebrate 60 years of life for my godfather, a man who I told him this Thursday when we took him out to dinner. I said a lot of the way that I move is because of what I saw him do. Even though we weren't close as godfather and goddaughter, I was paying attention to what he did. He went to college. He pledged love fraternity. He has his own house. He was the first person to put me on a plane at 10 years old and take me to Disney World. He still lives in that exact same house 30 years later and just retired from a job that he enjoyed. And he's traveling and doing everything that he wants to do. He isn't married. He doesn't have kids except for nieces and nephews and godchildren. And he gets to live his life the way he wants to. And so I was able to learn so much from him. And I have to give kudos to my parents because they grew up, they were probably the last of that generation that grew up with the mindset of, I want you to have better than I had. And so they had enough sense to choose people to be my godparents that were where they wanted me to be, even if they themselves weren't. And so I just want to say thank you to them for having enough sense to put me around people that they knew were going somewhere and they knew would show me the way of what it is that I could potentially have. And so I'm happy. I'm processing and thinking and grieving, feeling and wondering and celebrating all at the same time. And so as I get ready to close, I just want to encourage all of you out there to find you a place where you can have peace and quiet. Mine is the water, but if yours is doing something for yourself, find you a spot where you can go and just clear your mind and breathe and think and process whatever it is that you're going through. And remember to always put you first. Always put you first. So I want to thank you all for joining me. It's almost the end of Underneath the Hat podcast, but I thank you all so much for your support over these last 4 years. Continue to subscribe and like the YouTube page Underneath the Hat podcast, and check us out on all podcast platforms: Anchor, Overcast, Spotify, Apple, Google, Breaker, and Pocket Cast. Also, make sure to share, be engaged, post questions and comments. You can also sew into the podcast through Cash App or Zelle. And like I always end every episode for the past 4 years, remember to take care of yourself underneath the hat. Why? Because you are important. I'll see you next week. Bye.